Hi guys, I just wanted to make this quick video on how I set up a spawn since I set one up tonight. This video is mainly for Carlos so that he can see how my sponge filters are arranged, but I thought I'd just videotape the whole thing. I'm spawning this double tail crown tail with this single tail crown tail female that I bred, who is also carrying double tail. So anyway, I like to spawn in 10-gallon tanks. You can see that the water level is about maybe 5-6 inches high. And I really like sponge filters and spawning in big tanks because it helps lower the ammonia levels, and I really don't have a lot of early fry death this way. And again, this is how I do it, through trial and error, and I figured it out by writing things down to figure out what worked for me. But you have to find the way that works for you. Anyway, so with that caveat in mind, I like to have 2 sponge filters in each of my spawning tanks. One of them is this double-barreled filter that has this long spout at the top, kind of. And when the water level is this low, I connect it to the bottom, and then you can see that the spout is angled towards the outer wall of the tank. You can see that the bubbling rate is maybe 1 or 2 bubbles per second, and that it barely disturbs the surface of the water. On the other side, I like to have a standard bottom-weighted sponge filter, and I kind of have it in the back corner. This filter has quite a lot of air pressure going through it, but you can't see it because the water level is below the top of the filter. And so there's a lot of water circulating throughout this sponge filter, but again, it doesn't disturb the top of the tank because it's below the top of the filter. So with these 2 sponge filters, the water is circulating pretty well throughout the tank. And you got to keep in mind, this is like massive over-filtration. I think this sponge filter is rated for up to 20-gallon tanks. This sponge filter is good for up to, I don't know, a 10 to 20-gallon tank as well. So once these sponge filters are cycled and have been populated with bacteria, it's very, very hard to get any ammonia, nitrite, nitrate at all. You can also see you've got a bunch of hornwort in this corner. Water temperature is right on 80 degrees. The filter is submerged and slanted so that the water will be heated adequately even at this low level. And then I have a bunch of Java moss back there. I'm hoping that the male builds his nest under these 2 Indian almond leaves that I placed in this corner. And it seems like it because he keeps coming back to this corner. Yeah, there he goes. He's gonna probably build a nest under that leaf. You can kind of tell because the male will return to his nesting spot again and again, even before he's built his bubble nest. He spent a lot of time earlier checking out the entire tank, but I think he's settling on that leaf, but we'll see. This is a really good sign. The female is following the male's progress around the tank, and she's flaring, not too aggressively, but she is definitely interested in him. You can see that she really kind of wants to get at him, so that's good. As for the rest of the tank, so you can see that I have the entire top closed. So I have this glass lid, and then I also have saran wrap along the back. So you can see that the saran wrap goes really well around the various tubes that I have, tubes and wires coming out of this tank. And I can tell that it's a good seal because there is a lot of condensation above the water level. So that means that the humidity is very high above the water, and that there's going to be very little evaporation, and it will keep the water warm because there's an insulated pocket of warm air on the top of it. It will also help the bubbles not pop because the air is really humid. So you can see that I control how much air is going to the sponge filters through this what seems like a complicated set of gang valves. So these 2 valves are going into this 10-gallon. I've got 2 other ones going into this 10-gallon, which has a slightly older spawn, and I'll talk about in a minute. And then I have one going to my Whisper, what do you call it? Wow, I'm really tired. Air pump. My Whisper air pump. And you can see the tube going to the air pump goes into this top one here, which then goes to each one of these. So all I have to do is cut a piece of tubing to go to each sponge filter, and then I can control how much air goes into it by tightening or loosening these knobs here. So let's talk about this sponge, or this older spawn over here. So this is this tank that they were spawned in. They were free swimming on April 6th. So they're about 3 weeks old. You can see that I've raised the water level substantially, and there's quite a bit of air going to both of these sponge filters. I've taken the double-barreled sponge filter and I've put it on the wall, and you can see that I have the spout directed towards the outer wall so that there's very good circulation of water kind of in a circle around the tank. And you can see that even though there's quite a bit of turbulence from these sponge filters, that this spawn is able to navigate quite well. They're not fighting the current. They're very comfortably spread throughout the tank. The younger ones are still kind of hanging around the plants in the bottom, but the older ones are definitely exploring the entire tank without any problems from the sponge filter. And yeah, since I started using these sponge filters, I've never had a problem with early fry death at all. And I'm really busy, and I can maybe clean my fry tanks once a week. So I find that I get really good growth, and I don't disturb the fry that much when I use sponge filters in this way. And then the last sponge filter I have is on this 16-gallon tank, which is one of my grow outs. I just moved some fry into here. So these fry are between 1 and 2 centimeters long. They're sharing this tank with some Gardneri killifish, or not, sorry, Gardneri rainbows, a couple autos, and some stir-by cories. And so you can see that I like to grow my fry out in big planted tanks. I actually also have some fry in here from Larissa's double-tail spawn too, which is pretty cool. And then my other, this is my other grow out tank for much larger spawns. I've got my everybody's favorite cockatoo cichlids in here. But here's one from an earlier spawn. You can see these guys are almost ready to be jarred, not quite yet. I'm surprised that they're not fighting as much, because these are baby crown tails. But anyway, so this is a 30-gallon planted grow out tank. And then here's a 20-gallon tank that's got a bunch of Smaragdina in it, Betta Smaragdina, which is a wild type of Betta. And you can see I have an algae problem in this tank, but the fry are between 2 and 3 centimeters again. And this one has 2 corner filters in the back, and even though they're bubbling quite quickly, the Bettas don't seem to mind. They're just kind of hanging around, waiting to be fed. So anyway, there you go. That's how I use sponge filters. I hope this helps. Good luck with all your spawning endeavors. Night.